Daily fantasy football is an online sports betting game. Each week of the NFL season, users pick teams of real NFL players based on fixed prices and a salary cap. With these teams, users can enter leagues with other strangers for a fee in order to win money. The games are played on sites such as FanDuel and DraftKings, which have marketed their product as a fun game which even beginners can enter and win money almost instantly. There's one major problem with this statement. As New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has pointed out, between 2013 and 2014, only 10.7% of the players on DraftKings have actually turned a profit. I'm here to explain to you that if you're in the business of making money, daily fantasy football is not a game for beginners, but rather one that can only be played by professionals. Admittedly, even I'm hooked on this game. Although I would consider my fantasy football knowledge to be above the average player, my bankroll statement this season would beg to differ. I'm going to classify three types of players. The first is the armchair player. These players enjoy watching football but lack any real statistical preparation. There's number two, the suckers. And these are players like myself who study a lot of statistics, matchups, and news updates on the players but lack real sophisticated statistical models. And finally, number three, the sharks. These are professionals who treat daily fantasy football as a job, and they employ highly sophisticated statistical models in order to get high returns on their investments. Now think of daily fantasy football as a poker game with these three parties. Sure, the armchair players and the suckers will get lucky with a few hands, but over an extended period of time, or in our case the entire NFL season, the statistical advantage of the sharks will eventually win out. So how can a sucker like myself break through and become one of these sharks? So one of the major barriers is capital. Professionals have enough built-up capital to properly hedge their entries and spend money on premium statistics which are provided online. So how did the suckers prepare? Well, one of the most common ways is they listen to daily fantasy football podcasts. These podcasts provide key insights and stats on players for the upcoming NFL week. But who provides these podcast insights? Well, it's none other than the Sharks. And who sponsors the podcasts? Well, it's the sites such as DraftKings. So the casual player is basically seeking out the knowledge of the Sharks, which makes good sense on the surface until you listen to the disclaimers at the end of some of these podcasts. One disclaimer warns listeners that strategies explained by the professionals in some of their podcasts may not necessarily be the ones that they carry out in their actual games. So essentially, the casual players who are seeking out information have no choice but to seek the help of the eventual players who will be winning most of the money. One of the professionals that I listen to is Al Zeidenfeld, who has become a millionaire by playing daily fantasy football. 2 weeks ago, I entered one of the online lobbies to play a matchup against two strangers. And once all the fees were settled and the football games had started, I decided to look into my matchup to see who I was playing and see what their teams were like. And who was there? Well, one of my opponents was a veteran on the site who had made lots of money, and the other was actually Al Zeidenfeld, so I was playing against a professional. My initial thought was one of sheer excitement. This was my chance to test my skills against a real pro. So what ended up happening was I walked away from the contest with $5 fewer to my name, but I had a new perspective on daily fantasy football. If you're happy with paying for the entertainment value of daily fantasy football, that's great. But if you're playing in order to make money, leave it to the professionals.